Thus I've heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son of the lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Sharadvatiputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so on up to no old age and death and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell on the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva noble Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage of this soul. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharabhatiputra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Mali Shija Jije Zebetu, Shaji Zuo de La Sowa de, Tuji Chenpo de Xie Tuji Chang, Chuzi de Lo Ba La Na Ro, Bian Chu Zhu Bi Bo Da A De Shang, Nyang Li Xin Lo Ju La Sowa de, Shang Bo Tong Mi Yin Yin Na Zhu de, 秋天地月得当照别面，세상各色人年色年华，家亲识别俱乐所望，家人月面兄弟乐着当，到我这把这边各着见，三界观众宝宝要在送，三摩大愿俱乐所望。协助当地中央化的上，各当店别美国中的街，研究能是过去送老送，各当老毛能老送的，刚见些的所见送老毛，我到日边我说节奏节。当我点别到我给主见，要是就把钱拿所我的，就算跟的那么多的长，干了干的些年才做的，秋冬天幕我着走在边，只见那么弄了所我的，让家送着跟了到一面。给上他把这边中文说，这边这边他给这把一，现在先前当老说我的，叫我更多养到那么多，这边去这边拉拢事情，撒当那这也得着做呢，多久讲给个。要多着三界去当初界出那想出不多当年就是见，大概去解决别所难解，落落便是三界如果求三界去。做些出那想出不多当年就是。大概去解决别做那个，多了便是上界，如果求上界去，做些出那想出不多当年就做，大概去解决别做那个，多了便是上界，如果求，哎呀，哎呀。我给这个做的呢，是来源的，刚学的，要记得，写这里面都啊呀啊，哎呀，他们是最近他查检的我记着吧，他查检是那么的，他查检是的样，简单的嘛，简单的就说的，等这样三百多就从那个是，等这门家去，那么呢去不三百错弄别拖呢是吧？当年我那去去黑的，我那去见那么多的见的这个没多大生意，等这也从那去。那也别拖呢，他开的车给你别是的，就嘛主要的几个，那什么我人如果要上网的去接，呀，他去怎么连的了，叫连的了，就是在那接来下，他打的包了开的接下，他开的接头过来，他那个开的接那个来上面有从那去来不及。
So here now, let's try to have a strongly felt or the feelings that you should have at this point is by asking question to yourself that what I have done up until now, from the birth, ever since I came to this world as a human being, born as a human being. What have I done? What I am doing? What I will be doing in the future? And you should be asking this question to yourself. Is there anything I have done something that is positive in the past? If there anything that I'm doing something that is positive at this time, and what kind of plan that I may have that I will be doing in the future. So this is the kind of that you're asking this question with a strong, kind of feeling.
다 된저지게 소화제 배도냐 당연히 제너면도 지금 미도다 세치로 다다발은 뭐네 지대 영에 지는 처털면도 다마음벌은 텐데 쉬우지 다도 가고 저말에 다 취어지 된 강의잖아 얘나 당근에지 선바들 르르 제네비 존에 버초를 이치 르게야도 지네 선바들 상바다 저와기 선배도네 다면체데 르르지 제토로 제나 대나 쉬우지로 와상에 되지로 소소소 너자리지.
So here now, by understanding what you may have done in the past, that if you really look at and trace back to our actions of the past, there isn't much, we may not discover much of our actions that are very purposeful and meaningful. Probably we may not be able to engage in any kind of actions that will become a meaningful and purposeful in the future as well. But then here now, at this point, what you have to advise yourself is now, though I may not be able to much in my future, yet at the same time, I will do my best to take refuge in three jewels and, spend my life meaningfully and purposefully. And this is what you should have a goal of being together here today.
게이션에서 가진세나 배치 미디어 예전에 관계 레 좀보다 놀라다 다 체지진 다 개개한테 레이전지 체네 언제 런도게 내생 뭐네지 유여바지 런도 내서 땡해지 언더르게 런도 내 땡해지를 체비거라 다 카운트도지 로아 배션의 손바나 게지 카운트도지 제기니다 안데이터는 나타데 데리고스 봐봐 인디선들의 jel에 사나 지 냥충이 사나 당동 템보서지 말이야.
So now you think about that. Although that I may not be able to do much that are positive and meaningful or purposeful in the future, fortunately, I am born here as a human being with this precious human rebirth, and I have encountered the spiritual teacher who guides me what is to be positive that is to be adopted, what is to be negative is which to be avoided. And since I have encountered such a spiritual guidance from my side to the fullest extent of my ability to do something that is positive, something that is productive, meaningful for my life.
드여지게 전에 아니 랑게 된저 나가 되니라 아니 당수여 저랑 이제 템버 투병 온 거라 아니 이제 나다랑래 집에 남아나지 두 제시면만 내 라니가 시딩에 지 쉬는 제메 바체 아니 랑다랑냐메 내 랑게 전체 방마체데 딱 같은 전제 신제 탐지 내 랑다랑냐 랑다 집에 지장 내 대화들 동료면 되봐 주미셰바 내 주거바 레지게 망치지라 니지 사나타 레지게 단다라다 니게 데레 레지게 단치 두게 사이제나 맞아 가만 니치미 바치기다.
So with this here now, one visualizes Buddha Shakyamuni in the space in front of oneself, surrounded by the great masters of the lineage gurus of Lam Rim Chenmo, and imagining that they are, delightfully gazing towards yourself, and then imagining yourself being in their presence, surrounded by all those kind sentient beings who have a similar wish to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings, yet at the same time, they are unable to, due to the lack of knowledge, they are unable to achieve happiness because they are unable to accumulate the cause which give rise to happiness and so on. As ourselves, we long to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings. So too, all other sentient beings have a similar wish to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings. So it is therefore one must take refuge in three jewels by visualizing Buddha in front of oneself in the space, and then developing genuine compassion within your continuum, and extending this compassion equally towards all other sentient beings. With this, let's take a couple of minutes to meditate on this.
나도 이게 결혼 쳐봤지만은 건설버시 주세네 대바치 주 아니 대바치 주서 좀 나중에 봤어요 나한테 되게 대바치 주되네 체내지어라 아니 다가 저기 다시 결혼 쳐봤나 얘기네 라마 주부 당바다지 공시 강여거든 아니 따와진다 아니 두고이 아니 두비 아니 만노가 때빌랑 세네 들이질러는 이게 메로.
So with these motivations, one is receiving the teachings on Mahayana Dharma, or the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment of Lam Rim Chenmo. So such a teaching, we're receiving such precious teachings that great masters, the sublime masters, have practiced and gained realizations. And whatever the spiritual realization they may have realized, have transmitted to their followers. And this is the precious teachings that we are receiving and taking our time, and it's a wonderful opportunity to receive these wonderful teachings.
아니 되게 쳐도 담보고 서래서 당가서 주고 쯤바때 비신 저거베세디 당가서게 추기 다보스는 땜비다보 아니 담보 투병보 세네 달로니 동간자 윤라 아니 단제바 주니게 딩크는 뭐 봐도 상제 차나야 무슨 점블링 되는 집에 땜비 뒤셔야 되나 로니도 답지 조자세마데 들리지나도 대명화로 아서게 영번 대만 대용의 시비 땜비다고.
So then, this is to take, to talk about the first outlines of the greatness of the authors given in order to show the teachings as a noble source. So when speaking about the teachings as a noble source, so noble here refers to the Buddha Shakyamuni, who came to this earth more than 2,500 years ago, and who engaged in all those 12 noble activities for the benefit of all the sentient beings.
다 뒤에 제라에 신다 첨부 이게 제서 만로바 아니 땜비 따와도 시지 말로바 땡라 페투고 말해야서네 아니 베지 땜바디기 데레 계시 따와 땡라 페바이나 아니 고사 양산로에네 내가요 인치미지 신다 첨부 이게 제서 나고래서 여라게 루루도 도면이 페바로.
So it is therefore whatever the views and conduct that has been established or has been taught by the Buddha is explained very clearly by those two pioneers, Nagarjuna and Asanga. So therefore, in order for us to have a precise understanding of the philosophical standpoints or the views or the conducts, it is essential for us to follow strictly of those two pioneers, Nagarjuna and Asanga.
걔네들 다 뒤서 정원으로 제 양양 좌대게 나는 줬을 게라 정보 전에 근데 이거라 근데 최 양양 전에 강원전에 슈팅에 지고 많이 봐 덤버 제 때비 신하게 덤버 전에 잘했잖아요 에 다시 세제 다 있어서 나네 근데 단다발랑 가서게 라는 해봐대 되게 비타고 진행설라는 저거로.
So this is the tradition that we are following, as His Holiness often states, that is the Tibetan Buddhist tradition is a pure Nalinda tradition, which is true, because such teachings that we are following is not only just we are following as a religious purpose, but also that we are the follower of those great masters who actually gone through a thorough examination or the critical examination of the teachings of the Buddha by distinguishing the some as a definitive teachings and some as a provisional teachings and so forth. And it is such a pure tradition that we are following.
되지. 다 되게 나는데 아니 가서 가지 주제 아니 세월아 저기 빠데 하데 살아네. 매지 나는 저기 가지 주지 제대 저거서는데 냐면 또 가서 냐면 가서 가지 주제 아니 빠데 마음에 제네 지세라고라 아니 저기라. 되게 송 아니 되게 송되는 상주랑 저거데 배기 체결해서 아니 되게 제발에 양저 있을 때는 그래야 되네 상주랑 저거 정말로 정말 봐요. 지 간체신의 수제 정말 봐서지. 당가 좀더 되나 자가이 신도 세제에 때나 패바다. 왜 간체 중에 신도 세제에 때나 패비. 아니 쇼도 기도 동비네 정치라. 아니 맞도 되는 거 봐. 체내 제거를.
So the source of this great teachings of the stages, great deities on the stages of the path of enlightenment is, again, as we talked about earlier, is traced all the way back to the Buddha himself. This is then transmitted to the great followers, the great masters, such as Atisha and so forth. So Atisha is said to be at a crown jewel among all those great pundits during that time. And the particular Lam Rim teaching that we are receiving is a commentary of the Atisha's work, which is a lamp for path to enlightenment. It is a commentary that the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, written by Lama Tsongkhapa, is a commentary of the great master, the crown jewel, Atisha Divankara Shirjana.
다 되게 네 대람이 가서 제법이 쳐와 대리치 다 송게 쳐와는 많이 제가 지나 양들이 제스어 다 소로 견지 님보 되려와 세대니 소로 탄지지 님보 용서 되거든 네 상처나 제려봐 소로 견지 님보 되려와 세 송라고라 되게 님비 되용서 되바 인산에 아니 다 주자라 무슨 소고 여봐 제법세 자와.
So this still covers the first outline, the greatness of the authors given in order to share the teachings as a novel source. And then when it comes to the actual teachings, the teachings that we are receiving, the great deities on the stages to the path to enlightenment is it actually encapsulates the essential teachings of the Buddha. It is entire teachings of the Buddha, and so this is what the teaching that we are receiving.
다 전에 다 셰바보기 미유 가르자 그래. 얘네치 얘네 녀바보기 얘네 미유 가르를 때네 제고래서 돼. 내가 저기 진시 저다 샤워생들어.
So then what kind of objective the teacher who is actually giving such teachings must have? Similarly, what kind of objective the followers of the disciples must have to receive such teachings?
마코 드스티 지하고이나 다 뒤선도 제와를 봐도 근데 거치라다 라만 담마다 요 최시번 담마다 요데 정도로 다 라리게 된 거는 주바데 신경 지에서나 아니 라마테게 나도텔 라마 코로게 계기 주연지마도 주연이 철을 저통 청구 말에 라리 신경 지나 가서 라리 놀라 시바기 라마텔 아니 제저 들어 거를 미유경로 들어지 거래 영향을 들어지 거래서는 아니 수바데 신경 지에서나 아니 가서 코로기 치월마도 출을 주연지는 로마로와 그 라리 지저로.
So it is such a the teachings which actually covers the second outlines, that the wonderful teachings, that the teaching that is given by the Lama Tsongkhapa, the great teachers, the stages of the path to enlightenment, such teachings is a free of fault, free of error, in other words. There might be something wrong with the teacher who is giving the teaching of this Lam Rim Chenmo, but so long as the Lam Rim itself is concerned, the Lam Rim Chenmo itself is concerned, there is not a slightest error, period. And so if one has listened to these teachings from the beginning all the way to the end, one will experience how immaculate these teachings may be.
다 제바 담보 먼저 너무 제다트 이름 발라니 런지 자와 신이 되비서 너 때는 제다 자이름 바니 아니 너무 좋으시고.
So then here the next outlines, which is the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught actual instructions, followed by the two subdivisions: how to rely on the teacher, which is the root of spiritual path, how to student or the followers or the disciples train their mind after having relied on great teacher.
나 때는로 제다 이름 발라니 뒤에는 힘벌레 비시고 나 님보 제다네 비치니 다 도문리사 나 님보 제다네 비치더라니 나지 나잖아 님보 제다네 님보는 뭐지 다 도문리사 나 님보는 저거 달아서 지금 중요한 같은 거 나저는 반야서는 지금 제다 뭐 지금 챔피언 나저는 반야서는 지지 다 도문리사 나 지금 챔피언 나저는 반야서는 저라서 대전은 지금 뭐 세계 가나된 바 세대 제다 집이 선전한 쇼발로 지지 다 도문리사 다 선전한 쇼발로 로지텔라 송 선전한 로발로 로그비 저세 로발레레올로 상점은 주바데 로발로 로베르 바니시 바지 다 도문리다 다 로발로 로베르 바니시 바라니 쇼바텔라로 저다 치바도 마 그래 저라로 저다 치바도 도제테발로 지지 다 동보 동보라 송 상세 jelaba la de jang yang de jase de damba song so ne jeta ne bi chu ni chu song je da 동보 ni de da so ne jeta ne bi chu de la ni gang la lo bi je del la ba na de chu del la lo bi ren ba je da 동보 ni de sa da del la lo bi ren ba la ni xue ba che la lo de da che ba de fa che ta ma ni la lo zu je da 동보 la ni rangi sanje ju chumi ba je pa ra shi ma lo je da je ji ju mi ba je ba de yong mo je la lo zu je da 동보 la zhu jin ba lo zu zu zhen lo zu zhe ba lo zu ne zhen zhe lo zu san de lo zu xie ro lo zu ye ji da nga zong shang chu ji sen jie ne jie se ji yu dong yu xie ba lo lo gu bi no ye ne pa ro de xie ba zhu ge no ye ne xie ba ne zhen zhe ji pa xin pa ro de xie ba lo zu de la de ji sa ji.
So we are on the particular chapter of the Bodhisattva state, in other words, the Bodhisattva's practice. Out of 6 practices, we have covered above 3 practices, and we are on the 4th practice, which is the practice of the perfection of choice perseverance.
다 맞아 전주 세대 조 겨울 조이 삼바칠 시바칠 고고로 전주 세대 시바대 타신만 전주 파 타신바로 와 조아 타신바
So
원도 들어와
So if you talk about the nature of this choice perseverance, the choice perseverance is something that you are joyously persevering motivation. And you should, that is what is meant by choice perseverance. So choice perseverance is not something that is physical. It is more like mental. It is, it refers to the mental state of how one actually engages, how one actually cultivate a choice motivations to engage in the practice of bodhisattva, or in other words, the bodhisattva's practice.
바로도 심바 주 바로 심바 내리 용수 줘봐도 시빙공으로 와 시빙공원 제대 가서 시바이 맞아요 이제 꼭 공지 때네 가서 야를 줘야 될라 근데 사제 살을 줘서 타도 되게 되시도록 생제 연대 공부했던
Here, not only the choice perseverance is the mental quality, but also all the 6 practices of 6 perfections are the quality of mind. It is because of the perfecting those qualities, quality of one's mind, one gains the state of enlightenment. As we always say that once you're able to perfect those practice of 6 perfections, one gains the state of enlightenment, which literally means that once you have perfected your mind, you will gain the state of enlightenment.
다 전주에 뭐한테 되지 다 전주가 그 카투시나 공조기 치도 고치 전주 아니 뭐지 저 교화 치대 아니 세제 되지 전주에서 송지 소소라 안 받는 라고요 그거에 저러
So this is then the perseverance has 3 primary divisions. The 3 primary divisions begins from the first armor-like choice perseverance, second choice perseverance of gathering virtue, and the third choice perseverance of acting for the welfare of living beings.
되지 다 전주에 손보대랑 질에 제비게 터들라 아니 제세 쇼와라 요네 시바 아니 고라와다 펜바체와다 용수 조바 용우디 대 인자네 아니 제세 쇼와라 손비 존데 시자체네 아니 마 손위 인사나 가서가도 대손이바.
So therefore, the such practice of choice perseverance is a precisely and comprehensively written by the great Indian masters of Shantideva, Indian master Shantideva, and his work by the name of Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It is therefore, we already talked about that during our previous teachings, that Lama Tsongkhapa, the way he gives the teachings of perfection of choice perseverance is based on the Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life.
당가서 되래 당가서 전주 가르치는 가서 전주 몇천에 내려 제거해서나 아니 게 제거상에 내려 시시제 내려지는 지자 아니 되게 당가서 이제 되게 샤워 뭐지 제 차선에 제거해서는 샤워 내발이 했는데 양나게 루트금이 더 생기게 아니 내려 송거대 영어되잖아요 아니 다들 해서로
So why we haven't been able to actually perfect this practice of choice perseverance up until now? It is because of those three kind of laziness. The first is procrastination, and second is engaging in meaningless activities, and um, and third that you have a contemptuous, attitude towards yourself.
당가서 대해서는 아니 저랑 쉬쉬 때는 마대마도 아니 되서 민두다 아니 단단들이 초라도는 배 판그래다 하세네 아니 저번 제거를 해서네 된저된지 내가세 손에 되게 상나도네 아니 저봐 준비 상거지 소속이 당가서 이게 가셔야 되는 건지 제리 아니 루쇼텔에 용 투에게 몇 제거로
So here now, at this point, one should understand how important it is for us to engage in practice of choice perseverance, how important it is for us to cultivate choice perseverance, because there's no time, not much time left for us. This is how you should think. And think about how this death is sudden and how, then reflect upon the uncertainty of its occurrence. With this kind of reflection and contemplation will then, prevent you from having this procrastination, right?
샤워기 얘기를 다 저기 천대기 내지 루터로 깔래 쉬우지 저거다 근데 저거래다 다 대야 저랑이 내지 용 된다를 제거도 아니 된저기 내지 용 받대다 답이 추주에 내지 용이 되는 사이 쳐봐줘서래 저러 내지 되게 나다 근데 제mol로도 깔래 저샤나 약으로 와서 카투신 데려도
So then the next laziness can be prevented by by understanding the meaningless activities that we always engage in. And we engage in all kind of activities which, longing to achieve some level of happiness for us. Now, if you think about engaging in the practice of the Dharma, will give you, if we were to compare the result, that both of them are having we have a same aim of achieving happiness, but when it comes to the level of this happiness, are vast different. There's a, great difference between the two. The result that happiness that you may gain out of practicing Dharma, or result that you may gain out of your mundane activities. So therefore, you should reverse this. Instead of taking time in engaging in activities, mundane activities, I should reverse that and put more effort on practicing Dharma so that you will have a better result out of it.
또 뒤에다 가서는 가서 줘야 방 뭐지 봐 뭐도 지신 봐 인자네 아니 대설라 이제 배선은 막 흘려마 지로네 그 같이 간자는 거네 레도 무드세네 대설로는 땡거네 평거리 가서 뒤에 가서 지 돈이도 그 가장 건지세네 차고 말어 왔대 다른 가서 여신 바로 와
So this is, one should always read and contemplate and take one's time and try to practice, not just reading those as a theoretical or understand it as a theory, but try to make these teachings practical and implement these practices. So it is not as hard as understanding emptiness, or it is not as hard as, identifying the, object of negation of emptiness and so on and so forth. If you really go through and try to analyze and read very carefully, it is not that hard to understand.
다 가서게 네 손바데 질루가 세네 가르를 투금 내 투금도 세네 유샤워잖아 아니 다 터자 제벌 때네 질루바 아니 터제 털을 때네 질루바 아니 간데네 비 질루바 세데 다 가서 아니 터자 상제죠 고생에 때다 유야 그러 여마데 때때게 주투고 말했으나 근데 말에 상제게 소창 무슨 체제게 주투고를 소야래 손바만제 내 마음에 상제가가 맞춰데 집에 제자제나 갈래제나 상제조래 땡야 가르친 투고 말했으나
So now we are on the particular chapter of how we can stop this laziness, right? And because it says that, I am as an ordinary practitioner. If it requires, innumerable eons in it and linked up time periods, how would I actually engage such practice? How can I persevere to engage in such practices? As an ordinary practitioner, I may not be able to do that. This is, one form of laziness. So in order to prevent that, we are on the particular chapter where it talks about how you prevent that kind of laziness.
조비 상제제 고폰 얘기 주부 담바도서 양 신드는 냥마이 내라 노 요래지 아니 저런 신드 냥마이 내라 노아이나 저런 게 치시마제 저런 해로고 말이 가르잖아 소소 해봐나 소소를 뽑아디 생되면 냥로고래서
So here it talks about, even the great beings, enlightened beings, at some point, at one time in the past, they may have taken rebirth within this unenlightened existence and secular existence, even worse existence. And so therefore, do not discourage yourself by thinking that I have taken rebirth in this secular existence. I may not be able to engage in practice and perfect myself. You should not have this contemptuous attitude towards yourself.
that's a good area. And the same is what just on the Zupo Nyandro, the so Seri Logus, Series and the Nyanton and do some of the Janji. Saying it out the Java in Sona, and Zupi County La Tondo Sigda. Tang Yato Marinachi Maris and Pemba Zesha, and she saying body shondo the Lig out the Nyando Sarawa.
If one becomes disheartened, and then once the strength of one's body will degenerate. It is not just a religious belief, but it is actually proof by the scientist. For instance, in a particular practice that we are talking about here, that you're disheartened by thinking that I may not be able to engage such practice, then it will not allow your body to engage in such practice. So therefore, one should not remain disheartened.
Dalla membro di Ciba Tawa Shumba Jiba Lasso si di Tenda Teredua, Shumba Chewa Yesona, Ya Tawala Young Pegamare, so I.
If you remain disheartened, it is not going to help you at all. In any case, it will not help you. There's no benefit by remaining yourself, as a disheartened.
다 shumba cheba tenyang shumba cheba tenyang sanje yin ten taye shin jebu ju jes shebe langje che yin ten go taye ba ne juba ta jun go taye ba ne ga go ba lebo ko ne ten ranti to dewa na shumba cheba yin che sanje yin ten taye ba te nyanglen che dusu yenten cha chamore le jang de dang puchu shebe zhu nyang do da ge kwa shi je lo de sona da de de se da de de jen do shumba de me che wo ye jang de da sang wa min je so do de sang da min ji so do.
So here now we're reading throughout we're continuing from the text. 789, last paragraph. As to this discouragement, since a Buddha's good qualities are infinite and results follow from causes, you must accomplish good qualities and remove faults through limitless avenues while on the path. After you have understood this well, you may become discouraged uh, when you then take a look at yourself. However, this particular discouragement will never arise at the time like the present, when an erroneous understanding of the path uh, in uh, in path is in operations. Now, when practicing to attain the limitless Buddha's quality, you suppose that they are achieved by the one-sidedly and pursuing just a single small portion of the quality and uh, intensively working on it.
되지. 오늘로와 배나 가서 지 가서 터져라 돈에 줄로 재서나 연대 타여 받아 저 타여 받가 거바 돈에 줄로 재와이나 재버려 마도 다 연대 타려와 때는 선제지 공부등에 루트를 세워이나 아니 가르사 줄로 연사크로야 말와.
So if it is only that when this such discouragement or disheartening experience that one may have is because that when we look at all those practices and then you may have a feeling that this is a too much practice that I may not be able to do it. At the moment that you have such feelings, will then discourage. It will then dishearten yourself. To continue one's practice on the joyous perseverance. So instead of that, I am engaging in this practice to achieve state of enlightenment by understanding what kind of efforts that is needed for one to perfect one's accumulation merits and purifications to achieve state of enlightenment. Then you will not have this kind of discouragement.
전체적인 변화 가서 푸수세대 가서대 푸수스 소다세대 가서 로봇세나 로아파스 로비컬라 살마 푸바더디 다사킬마 다네 돈마도 파체 치치체나 푸바 템보 되고 말에 푸수스세디 응고주산의 슈체나 마 다우투가 제거세더와 푸수세디 얘나 가제 전체적인 가서 뒤선도 가서 상제 정보 주도거세지 토상제 상제 주도거세 가제 전체적인 제네 네 종코로기 자체산의 시대 줄루와는 줄루 양다리 마도 아니 전체적인 상제 주도거세나 고알로바레 엔데 아니 상다 마레소도 다 상다 메바도 말로부터.
So then here it says like yet in this case that you are not getting discouraged is a not good sign. Rather, it is a result of you are not being certain about how to proceed on the path or having a rough understanding but not putting it into practice. So you're confused by its appearance is. So for when you come up against the practice and receive the explanation of a fairly complete outlines of the path, roughly arranged from beginning to end.
다 상다 미바 가르잖아요. 회장 되는 상다 미치에서 랑 주치라 녀바 많이 봐. 고와 타토 유회장 랑게라도 만랑베 라란다와 시게 지바 렘바 인데 지베 렘바 인데 냐레라 tuba lang chung gonju rarin jibi cha tsangwa re tsang teba nang te tsang gowa suni sene lepa pangwa nangwi shiro sharayi shene sondo tere.
Okay. It is again lawyer as mount of the
Lo tsana jigen deke jab.
Kangal lo tsamindu tesi lasha. So here now if that much is needed, then who could do it and thoroughly give it up? And also Sharawa said.
되지. 다 튼트기 단지 되는 게 가서 아니 튼트기 지루바 매쟁에 되게 근데 야나 고아시절로도 somba 야나 타레타레지 고 하와지 아니 따와크네 아니 라바레스나레 야네 제바레스 동보데.
So the first it says now one is not discouraged because who have a rough understanding of this practice. Others may have not discouraged, but who 아
라리자지 고에 마도 고아 풀터고 매위 진세네 아니 랑여수 조벌 지루제 거 말에 다 뒤지기도 상제 투그레스는데 다 양서 양주지레스.
So then here some may not become discouraged because by thinking that you should not, it is not necessary to engage in all the practices, perfect in all the practices. By practicing one-sided, while engaging in one practice may gain the state of enlightenment. And this is erroneous way of thinking.
배는 아주 계시잖아. 다 된저게 나 쇼래와지 두네 상제 투그레마도 된저게다 가두 투그레세네 가셔서 지로와. 된저게 예대 요소 줘봐도 제반 요소 방거나다 가투그레세 라비소지.
It's almost like that. It is not possible for us to actually eliminate all those negative thoughts or the defilements and completing all the path as it stated in the text. So therefore, it is possible that one can gain the state of enlightenment by engaging in partial practices. So those are not the right way of thinking.
대장주 거나 수니 그래서는 레파빵은 한 것이 되래. 대대지 거나 수주도 그래서는 아니 랑 요소 줘봐라 만주버리.
So therefore it says, if that much is needed, then who could do it and thoroughly give it up?
나 게식해 샤라와 시에네 장안지 라네라 마슈비 상추 셈비 쇼바라 다피 밀라 하와 손에 쇼바장 명원지 명원지 다다 추레포 상와 람메베 엔 쇼바다랑 치데세비사 신바 민두데 레파차나 쇼바다 치세 존예 체데 신도 내바나오 신도 메바나오 뭐가서 메바 이노소.
Therefore, it says, for the bodhisattvas who have not engaged in practice, all the bodhisattvas teach seems easy, like looking at the target for arrows, and they do not even get discouraged. At present, we lack a complete practice of the teachings, so we have not even reached the level at which we would have discouragement or self-contempt when we more fully appropriate the teachings, then there is a great danger of discouragement and self-contempt.
데레 되게 단지 담아다 된다 지바래 나서에 있는 데서래 된게 상추 셈비 쉬어발라 자체와다 사바데 자체발라 진의 로무고 아체 진 답해봐서 미빠질을 자네 다가랑 상질라 상제 두고래서나 그 간사 두고보다 쇼바 제가 말은 저거 통마로.
So then without thinking of engaging in all the practices and completing all the practices and putting an effort to eliminating all those defilements and so forth, and by thinking that there's a way that you can achieve enlightenment, one-sidedly or without engaging in all those practices, and such individual will not have a result, nor individual have self-contempt or discouragement.
다 된게 먼저 달레버 참바에 매 당할 차차야 잡는도 아니 된게 자청 버징에 뭐 투고 말에 세네 지 레로 제사게 사찰라 아니 되는 지금 말에서.
So then also it is not okay or it is not appropriate to have a mental attitude of seeing oneself as not capable of engaging in those practices and I'm by thinking that I'm not in a place where I can engage in these practices.
당가 저기 던저기 자원이네 루트고 말해 생이지 깨져생이 자원이네 루트고 말해 생이게 소소기 지 삼반노로에 참가되지 제비가 던저지라 아니 소소 체세 제시그래 니 소소 지 배데 빠로지 숑거래 손다 숑 손바데 신데네 덴바래 손.
So then here it says now, when you, at the moment that you think that you will not be able to engage in this practice, it is not possible for instance, it's not possible for me to engage in those practices, then the discouragement will, strongly take place in your mind, will then prevent you from engaging in practice of perfection of joyous perseverance.
다 던저기 숑바데 가거로와 로와 산지리 간징이 토노네 지 가여로와 지기인데 토나 산제 주투고 말해. 다 얘데 타야버 주고는 예 주투고 말해 생이기 다 되니 가고로와.
So now one should stop thinking that one kind of practice will enable one to gain state of enlightenment. And also, at the same time, one should also stop thinking that it is not possible for me to engage in this practice. There's enormous practices involved. The numerous practices are involved. I may not be able to do this and that. So this too must be stopped.
되지. 다 대터비 털어슈버 가바네 소도. 아니 숑바니 보데 가고다. 주투그레스 네 산제 주투그레스 털어야 로고로와.
So now here the next it talks about, stopping discouragement, about the means to attain goal.
야, 딱 간적가도 다시와. 대터비 털어슈버 가바네 소도. 산제 주발라 깡라라 소바 땅고라. 대저와 다기 땅 미니소 야나 대장지 동해네 저거대에서 슈퍼나라 마슈바 랑가 데방랑 코와나 리제바당 제와당 푸바당 세발라 소비 동해 제렌 데바 뇨와 대양 랑게 대마주진 샹추지셰의 가와시비 동해 라네 동해 감이 차자야 메라 장시제 대주비 거바에 체비 셰데 라이 대주비 거바에 체비 셰데 손도 아니게 쇼지도 장과.
Then here it says, to accomplish Buddhahood, you have to give away your feet, hands, etc. But I'm not capable of such. I'm not capable of such feats. Reply: you must bear suffering to that extent. For even those who live as they please without engaging in the bodhisattva states, experience as they pass through cyclic existence, unspeakable sufferings, such as having their bodies cut open, thrown to pieces, and set on a fire, and so forth. But they do not accomplish even their own welfare. The suffering occasioned by undergoing, hardships for the sake of enlightenment is not even a fraction of suffering, and also has a great purpose of accomplishing both your own and others' welfare.
다들 리파사고 쉬우지 당고 때 들어와. 아니 세제 탄제기 때도 산제와라 강라라 소바 땅거비 동해 때 여바체. 아니 처랑이 때 된적이 세제라 소비기 때도 강라라 소바 땅마거나 아니 처랑 단다 뒤지 랑가 이비거라 아니 처랑 강라라 소바 때도 땅거고 말어와. 때 땅마거나다 추쇼 땅마거나 파쇼 땅거야 돼 정으로와. 다 니가 땅거바 지바이나 아니
So here now, if we were to, sacrifice by giving up your own limbs, letting it cut and so forth, for enlightenment, but then here now, if we were to compare that, if you don't have to give up your limbs and, bodies and so forth, without doing that, you gain state of enlightenment. But then now you look at this, So let's take a break here, and Rinpoche will, explain a little bit later.
Tangaso Dero, Sanje Tanji, the Zobi Sanje Komatawala, Kalejo Tugu Mindu, Sen and Nazo Humbache Wara, a Kale Karejo Tugu Mindu Sena, and Sanje Komatava Sanje, and the Rangi so long shit that the Tongo do any Chena, and get down to Mindu. Need the Laba the Rangi Kala Super Tango, the Techen and get down to Mindu, and Tangas Shena Chesatero.
So here now we fare most of the time, according to the text, by saying that, in order to gain state of enlightenment, we have to go through all those hardships, hardships of, even having, you must, bear suffering to that extent for even those who live in their places without engaging in bodhisattva, experiencing their pass through secular existence, unspeakable suffering, such as having their body cut open and torn pieces and so forth. And so such hardships, I may not be able to go through such hardships. So this is the one kind of discouragement that one may have when it comes to the hardship that requires for to gain state of enlightenment.
Don't hit the circle. Don't hit the circle, Karijan, don't hit the circle or Sana, and Channel Sanje Tanchi get under don't hit the Zerna, Japayandare, Mato, Channel Sanje Tanchi get under Mienaya, Channel Dijin, Rangawa de Picola, and it don't Casagela Subi, don't hit the Memevachi Charang in your go or us.
So it is worthwhile, in other words, it is worthwhile to go through those sufferings for the benefit of all other sentient, to gain a state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. Hardships such as having one's body cut open, torn pieces, stabbed, set on fire, and so forth. Those are worthwhile, because even though one may not go through such, one may not aim towards gaining the state of enlightenment to make in such effort, but we go through these sufferings, in a numerous times.
Telecodeosina, Toma Mebana, Tandapadonga, Sogi, Lula Super Seji, Sele Kebachi Chesareda, Neranda, Darius and the Tamewa, Jenda Kanekani. That Regenda get to do Shana, and it Randa Duba say, Jenda Tata Memebachi Duguri inside, and it Charagi don't hit it, don't Charagi Karachana, don't hit it, no go do. Don't hit nobody, and it turned out you about such a country, you turn to the Yonsana, Jisayanda was.
So we have gone through such sufferings, the suffering of having one's body cut open, torn pieces, stabbed and set on the fire and so forth, from the beginning of time. For numerous times we have gone through that. Yet at the same time, we have not achieved anything. We haven't achieved anything up until now. But then it is worthwhile. Ourselves, by engaging in the practice and putting an effort to going through all sufferings to achieve state of enlightenment. With this, only to fulfill your own wish, the wish of other sentient beings. So it is worthwhile to go through these efforts.
对吧？今天选举呢，就是讲了老说当，讲了，可是原的讲了老说吧，当个大年期限呢，这等样我希望呢，莫别大件几把 says， 对啊，这也把它记录了，人家的这些比较，说了个几。
So then here, engaging in the bodhisattva state says, but if frighten me that I must give my feet, hands, and the leg, without distinguishing heavy suffering from light. Confusion reduces me to fear.
对了啊，跟他就讲的几把节，那个生前一等多了，刚把的喇叭了说把当过的，俺当土个没事，现在叫人拿啥？你前两年呢，生前他这个等的刚了说当马个呢，你最近呢前两年刚把当刚了说当过个马来维斯，对吧？他这件事呢，你就的阳往你的西巴节呢，莫别几把干啥？莫别当你几把些用的。아니 저부 최종라 때는 동해 용어 뭐가 세바 제용데 아니 켜봐도서 아니 동해 용어나 가사 제고 면조 아니 저거도서 아니 동해 충주적으로 많아요 동해 첨부 지워다 차그래스.
So therefore that it says is now, but if it frightens you that you must give away your feet, hands, and the like, heavy from light, the confusion reduces oneself to fear. So here now, what it says that the wise one always choose and see even the heavy sufferings, even the heavy sufferings will see as a light. But someone who is unwise or someone who is not very wise will see even the suffering might be very light, but it sees as a very heavy.
他最近这些的事对我了，这把小长面都连当他妈结巴当，我的事的先进去想出头不明就了，对嘞。他当他把那个出去接上来这个，你想出的头么都忙把了，这张就上来，有的也接起的有些的，刚也特别简单讲过了，我是对的。
So here and then it says, for countless tens of millions of eons, I will be cut, stabbed, burned, and torn asunder numerous times without thereby attaining enlightenment. So here now, we have gone through these sufferings numerous times in the past, and we haven't been able to accomplish anything, right? So just by fearing those practices, if one remains so disheartened and not being able to engage in those practices, it will put us in a worse situation.
大概上去主把一东西的呢，所有的什么空了，那些有些立马对比东西人，明白明白，跟着说些些，没得我一难免些，这个东西忙不大，相信没得穷水下些所说的。
So then here it says, this suffering which brings about my enlightenment does have a limit. It is like undergoing the pain of an incision to excise an injurious internal disease. All doctors eliminate illness through forms of discomforts which heal it. Thus, I will bear a little discomfort to destroy numerous sufferings.
这就听到我那前呢，听我呢，听了些多的，听到这里，别那我所以 pena donghe nyongo te tanda donghe chunju chi nyone ni dewa chenpo chi taba yana dewa chenpi tanda la donghe chunju chi se che ko gore se chi tandere tanga so tenda dewa tobi tanda la ani tenda dewa tobi che do ni ko se che la soba che shaba tang ani rebu chi ya meba se che che shani da rebu chenpo yumbi tanda la se che che shani ya uro pena memba keba chi kobo nolo la ni songo duja le do ete ni shaje chene jambu shaje chene ni songo de mebo so go was de zubo le shaje che de do he re was.
So here, just going through a little suffering in pursuit of achieving happiness, it is worthwhile, right? Because for us, when we are talking about putting an effort and going through suffering, is the achievement of everlasting happiness. That is the ultimate goal of every one of us. So in order to achieve Tendu Dewa, the everlasting happiness, it is worthwhile to undergo the sufferings, the little bit of sufferings. And as a result, one gained the state of the everlasting happiness. So therefore it says all doctors eliminate illness through forms of discomfort, which heal it. That's I will bear the little discomfort to destroy numerous sufferings.
Ta terwa ta senje tangje ge do ni chora gi dong he de che de mane zo ko go le zo go bi chen sen ro chora gi dong he de senje gi de ge dong he de zo go mi se na ya dong he nya ma ga na de ji ro den de rem do dong he kar chen mane nyo go do nyo ai de den da thang ba ji nyo sha wa yin na den da chen bu thang go do wa.
It is worthwhile to accept our sufferings for the benefit of other sentient beings. Even though that you do not accept sufferings, we will undergo sufferings without a doubt. Instead of resisting and instead of voluntarily accepting sufferings, it is far more better to accept sufferings to achieve happiness or to achieve state of enlightenment for the benefit of other sentient beings. It's a fruitful acceptance of suffering.
This is repeat jaten shuji repeat jaten sana dona ro da si ji mo de chi shan ji ma re ko repeat jaten sana dona ro ani tanta tembi de ne dong he nyo go de kan de do sa ani dong he nyo na ko ka re chu do da de do jo re do ani do jo ma re dong he nyo de je bu ye re sa na ani kan de chen ne je bu ye re se lo so na ani se je thang che la mi ne ani ka le jo sho da je bu ye re Demina miba kya mejane ni dongen yodo na dojo res. Kete doja shen tere.
So here now, this is not a religious belief. It has a very valid reasoning behind it, right? Because we will not free ourselves from undergoing suffering. Right? That is not going to happen. We undergo suffering anyways. Now, how do we make this suffering that we are undergoing purposeful and meaningful? Is to accepting the suffering for the benefit of other sentient beings, aiming towards a state of enlightenment. So therefore, your acceptance of suffering has a goal. It will give you a positive result. Thus, it is worthwhile to accept the sufferings.
Wana nga pa shu gu bi ne nge ta ta ran tong sha gi ta ta yo ba ta ta ran ji sen che gi ta do la tang sha gi bi sa na ani de ma re ani su su ge ni tang bi gi du le le ye me sen da le ye me ta gu ma do da sa ta me ba nga sen che tang ji de yang le chong sha ge sa na je bu ge ge yo ma ro.
Having said that, we cannot just engage in these practices of undergo sufferings at this time. Is it appropriate? Are we really ready to go through this sufferings at this time. Suddenly we are not really, and at this point we're not really on that stage, right? But we should not disheartened by thinking that it's not possible for me to do. But there is a time where you can actually become a fully qualified to engage in those practices for the benefit of other sentient beings. So here, now the meaning of above verses are summarized in this particular paragraph, very short paragraph, very beautifully summarized by saying that with this respect to giving away your body, you do not give it in the beginning when you're afraid, it says, but through graduated training in the generosity, you end your attachment to your body. Once you have increased the strength of your great compassion, you have no difficulty when you give it away, provided it is for a great purpose.
단다 대도 이나티 마음반에 뒤세질래 해요로 세체 말고 단단히 로아 진비 동생이나리 준주기 선바이나리 같이 강전에 로를 공부했네 공부했던 돈에 센터려가지 제거마도 나 산일에 나일에서 주바 이거 군도나 뒤세조로.
But then in order to reach such a state where you can actually engage in those practices, you should practice right from now. You should begin to familiarize with this practice right from now, because it is not that you will just wait for some time and then this stage or that this stage will arises within oneself. The stage of this practice will resume. You will become at that particular stage where you can actually engage in this practice, automatically. This will not happen. We have to, right from now, from the beginning, we have to familiarize with this practice and try to perfect your practice of generosity. So then here, again, the engaging in the bodhisattva state states that the supreme physician does not employ ordinary remedies such as those he heals limitless chronic diseases with the most gentle treatment.
당가서 탐해봐 이변은 주복이 샤주로 오지 동거 가는 나차도자 진소나야 편바 캐바도서 따윤디 아니 뒤를 마법바도 아니 초가된 제거 말에 뒤를 벗어나 니 잠비응안에 아니 샤주 저거는 매대거는 가래잖아 렌치잖아 마도 랑상코로 마미코는 제거 말에 소에 들어와.
So here now what it says is now if one requires if one needs to undergo surgery, the physicians will not just right away, oh, you need this surgery and we're going to do it right now. This is not what it's going to happen. That physician has where you have to go through all those prerequisites and is it clear or no?
표제 개념이 때 장로들 저는 얘기는 것이 더 지체도. Pitching it, tell you what you sort of.
Is that okay?
Nima, it might be better if you turn off your video.
Okay, Yakudo.
Try turning off your
Okay.
video.
Okay.
Taya would join.
How is that? Is that better?
Oh, Taya would do.
Is that better?
Taya would die in that.
So here now,
Taya would.
if one needs to undergo surgery, and when you approach your physician, the physician, as soon as you approach and the physician diagnosed and went through all the examinations, he will not engage in the practice of surgery right away. It requires some time, right? It requires certain time, and that there needs to be appropriate time is needed for that the individual to undergo surgery. So therefore, here it says, the Supreme Physician does not employ ordinary remedies, such as those. He heals this chronic disease with the more gentle treatments.
This is that day in that day the better judge. That's Semalos Jimbalan, Jimbe Thomas Joanze, Della Kone Shenene, Range Rangi Shayan Town, Cancer Rangi Lulane, Suso Tabi Lochebe, Detser Rangla, Detser Shala So Town, Della Kawa Jian Yu, Jishi Yu, Jeso, also.
So then next it says, at the beginning, the guide enjoins you to give vegetables and so forth. Later, after you are used to this, you gradually offer even your flesh. Once I come to consume as being like a vegetable and so forth, what difficulty will there be in giving away such things as my flesh?
Nyanga Kura Kasisana, Roy Country Dene, any Tajiganda Losoma, any Rangi Lula Chabado, any Nichi Champion to Sumpi Kautela, any Karina Tanturi, Tanayang, Tambo Kansa Korola, Tarangi Gazette, Mengachado. Tanda Namasan Gazette Govan in the Gazette.
So here now, in order to engage in such practice, it really requires, in other words, that you have to familiarize with this practice without having any problem and without any, hesitations. So therefore, in the summary that we have read earlier, with respect to the giving away your body, you do not give it in the beginning, what it says, when you are afraid, when you think that you are unable to do that. But through graduated training in the generosity, you end your attachment to your body. Once you have increased the strength of your your great compassion, you have no difficulty when you give it away, provided a great purpose.
Taking us never Chishu Kuala and Karsana, near Sanja Dubin and the tournament on the Luso Longset, they were Tombi Kitch at the Mare, Loy Santagi, Jean La Jinzing is and Chasen saw in the Mebate, Jajan and Jaja, Jentam Bashila Santungi, Kansachi Chagurmato, and Sholo tournament on the Tombi Kitch Marida.
So it is not when we look at here by saying that that's give away one's flesh and so on and so forth. It is not, literally straight in giving away your flesh to others and cutting your limbs and giving away to us. This is not what it really means. Here, what it means here is to practice detachment, what it says. One needs to practice detachment towards one's body. If it is required for one to give away one's limbs, and one should have a courage to give away such limbs. And this is the what we call it. This kind of practice, the practice, and gradually one will be able to perfect one's practice of generosities, even if in reality you will have no hesitation.
되게 과대 야본 거도 나도 가서 제 상추 선바도 대신에 장랑바라마 집바도 되서 되게 과래나야 추노로 but 진실로 동투에 되로 진실로
So
동되지
it's really emphasized on how do we really get rid of our self-cherishing mind. That is the main emphasis over here, because otherwise we might think that the bodhisattvas will go to the street and give away his body and his blood and flashes and so forth. This is not what it really means. What it emphasizes here is to how do we really undo ourselves from this self-cherishing mind.
땅비 뒤다 아니 땅비 츠다 아니 전주기 신바게 공시 쇼체모이나 소소기 주거 땅이나 다나가서지 지 고모치도 지제만 처마스네 빼자도 전주기 제나 랑라 차선 대장점에 매비高级 레비 가라 아니 당근에 로 공부 쇼체모 쇼지래워라.
So when you are in the stage where you can actually ready to give away everything, even if you have to give away your body for the benefit of other beings, you are ready to give it away without any hesitation, as if that you are giving $1 to someone. So when you reach such a state, then it is really ready for you to engage in this practice, employ those practices.
야 맞추기 지 라니기 류드치 조바선이 통백게서 말이야 리텐 코로 라기 되는 근데 상추 센제비 리텐라 니저 컨트롤 된다고 폐지 처리 상추선 려칸면 제인자 특히야 통보대 빼도 몰라와 유시선이 양 천하대 그지매래 때때니라 상추 생각도 적고라 가지 샘 바시기 토는 내가 제통에 지기로와.
So here this practice really requires based on cultivation of bodhicitta, right? When we talk about just give away one's body and as if that you're giving away $1 to someone, that doesn't mean that you're really, you're not valuing your body by looking at this body as something that is undesirable object or something that is contaminated and so forth. This is not how we engage in this practice of giving away one's body and so forth. Rather, in fact, this body is very precious because having obtained such a human body, it's possible for one to generate bodhicitta, not other forms. Only this human form, composed of 5, constituents. With the human body composed of 5 constituents can generate a bodhicitta. So therefore, it is not something that is that has no value at all.
년주기 선반의 상적이 사바던 로사기 랑가 코노데 생기 공바 코노이 바도 고아슈체 말레소아이나 아니 니미도 뭐 가세 시에나요 진주기 동투 제거에 메레 로코노 공바랑 공바 타신 바 계자로.
So it really talks about how do we really practice mentally, in other words, meditating and familiarizing yourself with this practice. Beginning from all this practice requires a mental training, familiarizations, beginning from the practice of generation of renunciations all the way to the state of enlightenment.
단단가서 공깃나시 제모도 저도다 단단가서로 단단가서 거는 저는 캔사 쉬어져래. 뭐 저와보듯이 야동마동데 지보다 가고 두고 생긴데 간제 onshi shu chadroa. Nashi yichena kongri tenyo gola, ishi shu chesho lebi gola, ani kanza de tse tombo legre.
So at the moment, what we employ when it comes to the our six six senses or the sixth sense consciousness, we are employing this five sensory consciousness, and based on how we use our five sensory consciousness, we are running after it, right? We're not really activating our mental consciousness much. We are really relying upon our sixth conscious. I mean, this five, sensory consciousness. So when you are able to, maximize your relying on the mental consciousness, you are then, reach a certain level where you can actually improve your practice, dramatically.
야, 근데 이 과제 레마도 아니나 예단 뭐 고시기 좋아 뭐 레그리. 그러면은 다 랑게 세는 되는 상제 때문에 동대로 근데 센텐지 윤텐지도 다시 메신 개체시유도 걸 공이 나시도 공이 유도 접어서 지 가서 랑가르도 맞지도 통비 소리 지레마도 그는 로딩에 좋게 말해.
So here, when talking about state of enlightenment, is the perfecting one's mind. That is all. That is what is meant by, achieving state of enlightenment. Because, our sense consciousness is mere cooperative conditions. It doesn't really have much functions when it comes to the purifying of one's mind. So therefore, we have in the praise to the Buddha Shakyamuni at the end, where it says, subduing one's mind is the teachings of the Buddha, which entails that there is a strong emphasis on how do we subdue one's mind? How do we perfect one's mind? That is what is meant by. The mind here really refers to the mental consciousness.
제소지 대나 가지기 파르드 신비 테바에 류수 동거에 동아제진 샤가이 라모세와네 존데 레파까만 한데 샤가이 디시제베린라 메동라 처마라 소테와탄 자와 신달하이체 동아인비 셔로선데 공직된도 로이.
So then here it says, some say that since practitioner of the perfection vehicle must give away their bodies and lives, they undergo torment and are on the path that is very difficult to follow. This text clearly refutes this, because you do not give away your body, and so long as you perceive it to be a difficult deed. Rather, do so once it becomes very easy, like giving a vegetable.
네. 내가 저러와 바로 대신 비테바노 산제 고폰 루발라 류소라서 동거슬라도 아보 드르칼레카보 랑칼레카보다 가도 투레스는 라이나 아니 대다다 되고 말인데 일레바 까야레스 아니 저런 샤카와다 투고 민두세비가 우주전 투 다랑이 우주제비가 내가 제가 말해 공지된 갈래 공소나 뒤서지 뻗나 투고도세비 까다 제는 되그래서.
So here now, according to the perfection vehicle, it requires, many eons for one to gain state of enlightenment, go through all those difficulties for eons and eons. I may not be able to do such practice in this life. So one may have this kind of, discouragement. But when you have this, then try to recognize it, and should, try not to embrace those discouragement, but rather think about that. One may not be able to, at this point, one may not be able to go through all those sufferings at this point. But I will engage in this practice and familiarize myself with such practice. So in a gradually, there will be a time where I can be in the where I can be on I can be in the state where I can actually engage in those practice without any hesitations.
네. 당가서 진료가 사기에네 터자를 때네 진료가 되네 터자 조비 선제 거보다 선제당 가서 집에 지장래 아니 닝가로 쫀주 맞으면도 나라 터여를 생긴데 아니 터자를 때네 같이 되지 다 터지지 터를 때네 터도 마투비 걸어 그 말이 인신이 공부 때네 공부 탐에도 피비 걸어 네 가래네 제토 그래서 딱 같이 가르치는 유마셔서 다 손바 내를 때네 네 두비 네 숑바 까봐 세데 내가 숑바 손 까고도
So therefore, now one should always remember that one should always have a courage to engage in those practices and ready to undergo those practices, but in a very gradual manner. By I must undergo such. I must engage in those practices for the benefit of engage in the practice to gain state of enlightenment for the benefit of others. And this is the goal that you should always have in you. And then one engages in practice, and it gradually improves one's practice and progresses one's practices, and then transiting from one spiritual level to another spiritual levels. So here now the next it talks about the stopping discouragement, because wherever you are in a place to practice this.
그래서 가서 다 도와지를 가래나 다 가서 두고 말해서 내가 신주 문제 털라 신주 문제 다 저전 등인데 지로
So we are normally kind of in neutral, because nor we are examining whether or not one can do those practices, and neither one think of achieving those practices. So we are kind of in neutral, falling into a neutral position.
또 또요 맞sol라 맞아 가려서는 생주연대 공부 탐에도 배에게 연대지기 맞장나로 총려 들어와. 데려다 사제에 비제세 생주연대에도 공부 탐에도 배요.
So fortunately we do have this quality of mind. The development and the quality of one's mind is limitless. One can make a limitless improvement of one's mind. So this kind of quality that such a wonderful quality of mind is possessed by all of us. So it is for this purpose. It is for that we always believe strongly that we all have a potential to gain the state of enlightenment.
전적이 사배들은 가족이 출리로서 진은 melody 자셔이나 그 개발로서 대도 그러마도 콜리안 접은 해스케요 말에 다 그런 게 맞아요 맞달라 출리로서 베게 공제 대해서 아니나 아니 공부하면 돼야 돼요.
So
however 공부세 로이디 제급이 따르지로 공부체에서 네 약간 제쇼서 맞잖아요. 대도 말해서 그러죠.
So however, by understanding the seeds that is within us, if this seeds remains unmoistured by one's practice, if in other words, if seeds remains unconditioned by one's practice, then one will remain in the same position for forever, right? The seed that you have within us must be nurtured by one's practice. It needs to be, conditioned by one's practice. With this condition, then gradually one will then reach to the point where you can make, limitless positive development of one's mental quality. So therefore, it really requires a mind training or the familiarization of those practices.
당에 선제 탄치기 때 두고는 가 코알에 되고는 뭔가 코알에 이름부터는 대투사 말에서나 아니 대가바네 소야 되려도.
So now here it talks about if I long to gain state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings, I should remain in cyclic existence for eons and eons. I may not be able to do that. If you have such discouragement within one's continuum, and how do we stop this discouragement? We will be explaining in the following, paragraphs.
다 간드네 간드네네 라두비 네라 shum바가바네 산제 두바네 코아지와 타야바 라네 셰고라 대이체 코이 동해지 뇌베 대답에는 미니소 냐나 소 데리다 된다.
So then stopping discouragement, because wherever you are in a place to practice, it says, reaching Buddhahood requires taking limitless rebirth in cyclic existence. So I will be harmed by the suffering therein. I'm not capable of such things.
인도 고슈 송자도와 네 냐나 하시 샹세제 디방베사 줄로베 제부 초와 동의 민종라 코아 라시 메바 주마타 또바 템베 셀라 동의 메진 르세 데베 제나 코아 데자 조덴 메베 데타 삼바 데 송도 데타 상데 송도.
So then here it says, Bodhisattvas have sins, therefore, sins affect the feelings of sufferings will not arise because they have stopped the cause. Through firm knowledge that cyclic existence, like an intrinsic nature, like a magician's illusions, they also have no mental sufferings. Given that their physical and mental bliss increases, they have no reason to become disheartened, even though they are still in cyclic existence.
다 상추 선발에 선제 통책이 돼도 코알라 냉에 지나 아니 코알라 대비rinda 디바 사고 말와 디바 마사나 아니 좋아 동해대 연구 말와 디 제부 동해 연구 말와.
Here now, if one is bodhisattvas, even if one stays in this cyclic existence or unenlightened existence for eons and eons, you will not accumulate any negative karma. You will not embrace any defilements and so on. If you are free from these defilements and not accumulating any negative karma, you will not undergo sufferings. So therefore, it is not bothersome for one to remain in cyclic existence for eons and eons if one is a bodhisattva.
상주 선발에 자나 지발에 생가 정도 상주 선발한지를 생로지를 제면에야 선제 통책이 된다 제게 인생이 있다 결혼 정보 여행이 지나 아니 디빌레 슈체모 디바메게와 슈체모 사고만에 디바메게와 슈체모 마사나 센델라이니 소아동에게 강하게 체크마로와 디기 제부텔라 소아동에 요구 마로와 대면에 이름을 되는 계면도.
So here now, even if we are not bodhisattvas, even if you are not bodhisattvas, if one, wholeheartedly engaging in the practice to gain state of enlightenment for the benefit of other sentient beings, and then suddenly your actions of the body, speech, and mind will not become a negative actions. You will not accumulate negative karma. In turn, you will not undergo sufferings. So therefore, even if one is not reached the bodhisattva's level, if you are able to if you are able to refrain yourself from negative deeds, you will have no problem, even though if you have to stay for in unenlightened existence for long period of time.
다 류를 동의해 봐지. 다 거의 랑신데 주마다부 또와 인자네 생을 차단쇼도 쇼청만 명화 인자네 생들을 동의제야 말 생들 대화제네 대그래 아니 전화제야 말에서 현재서.
Therefore, then it says the bodhisattvas, through firm knowledge that cyclic existence lacks an nature, like magicians' illusions. So therefore, with this kind of cyclic existence, having an intrinsic existence, the bodhisattvas also have no mental sufferings.
뒤지는 가서 하고 그래. 때는 주마다부 또소나 가서 피기 차단돼 치도도 주바다 지코노 유디는 여바지 시샤전에 인텔 차단 제고 와라. 주마다부 또소나 유디는 주비 계좌도 여 말이 콜 차단돼야 기요. 차단면은 셀 리셀라 동행케 용고 말와.
So if it is true, because normally, if one is able to look at everything as an illusion lack, then you will have not attachment towards it, right? This will detach oneself from, or this will actually, facilitates to develop a detachment towards any kind of objects. If you have a proper understanding of illusion, everything as an illusion like. So therefore, if you do not have this attachment towards others, by understanding everything as an illusion like, then you will have no attachment. Without attachment, you will have less sufferings.
네 치대도 리바 차보시오 당셔야. 그 거대고 라자당 반년에니까 가르치는 제 토에서지 나한테나이고도 돼. 제번지도 일단 사사마를 생각들린 세조고 사도 뒤서라서.
So this is a very, very, comprehensive and precise, explanations of how we practice. And, I thought of going through this explanation in detail, but we are running out of time, so we will not be able to do it today.
야, 당가 저기 때 가서 주세님께 처음에 대성도 사비 교환나 쇼지도 담비 털라 쇼지도 담비 털라 되네. 아니, 다랑지 선제 단지기 된다네. 지 때도 대화진 해봐도 두고이. 해봐 두버되네. 지 단정문하면 정말 지금 나리 친구는 지 선버신다. 내가 지 방지 뒤토로 잔다. 내가 같이 용사래. 내가 드리치는 좀 고치 주의다. 드리치 용 투어지. 아니 되는 주변 아마나지 신절로도서 세네지 뭐하다 뭐니가 되는 거는 가야라야 되지 차고로 되면은 야 장로 바로 계산을 차로 살아.
So now we're studying by dedicating that whatever the merits that I may have gained by participating in these teachings for 2 hours, and all the collections of all the merits of the past, present, and future. And by means of that, I be able to take an initiative of engaging in this practice of Lama Tsongkha's immaculate teachings on the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. May all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions bless me to be able to do this.
Bene no bene sonen Kada yamba kashi sabade Lame mare ke non rovano Nangre jaye hombo tajoji Yama sube sera kundo yang Jambe yanje tsevye jizone Tembe remba kunsan nanje cho Yene drube jena nyeshe cho Rangi jejen dobe nanje ne 修着自愿超越道别界，卓越越界明白谢谢你，教育电报有人真觉界，电报人间出给马家宝，悄悄娘把区别说的呢，你这前辈一绕就把一。偏偏点点在我心发愁，在今教育民众成年，连着上学浪迹分别长，他的浪迹一浪别的心，教育最把人都讲究起，浪上主编天前主席间，给见世界门当门面。 切若更多教育康波伊，南多南东这我马就起，刚才天宝就了去世界，最近住了怎么地缘菜，土地南就大多主席的，这些将是说。 我就接着老面古色老店。 南瓜青的手指结波动，罗藏点笔纸面撒上去，落叶明色大多念旧记，抗热热故意心高思，天堂的王莫林中也。 现在在我对着两作业，小白身体不多念旧记。 江边八月知道千八道，更多人不太阳天见的，得到个人接受道路去，给我的大堂姐绕多梦，就算西边叫我堂姐，我刚了就多我把的，大钱给月早晚的跟上。 总不是绕多我。 哎呀，对不起，那就。